So good morning, good afternoon and good evening to our viewers out here in Cyberland. And for all of you who are connecting in today, thank you for connecting and tuning into our podcast here in this intimate conversation series that we run. And today I feel very honoured and am excited to get into this conversation with our guest today, all the way from Germany, Vitaly Cugulsky.
It's okay.
Thank you. I'm terrible with names. I stumble over them all the time. So welcome, Vitaly, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for this meeting.
Such a pleasure. So I'm just going to explain that in what we do is we get our guests to send in a little bio and we introduce through that. Now, Vitaly has been going through some very big, as we all are, some very big shifts within. And he sent in this writing that explains a bit of him. So I'm going to read that to you all now and just introduce him. So the other night I couldn't fall asleep. My thoughts were running in pointless stories that were changing every few seconds. I was very tired and had no patience for all of this nonsense chatting in my head. I felt like once again someone turned the dial on full volume in an attempt to distract me from what I was about to rediscover. Enough now, I strongly affirmed to the chatter in my head, and the noise instantly stopped. But this time it was different than usual. It snapped me back to my true self. It was far beyond powerless torture of my false self. Not for the first time, my whole life was flashing in front of my eyes like in a near-death experience. But this time, more profoundly than ever before, I realized that my whole life was nothing but a dream that someone else was dreaming. Me wasn't even real. Everything I identified as my past and what I thought was my journey and my personality wasn't me at all. It was something on me, doing me, a dream, a program, a hologram that was playing out without any consent, as if I was a character in some video game, doing what I was programmed to do. And at the same time, all of it was like a swinging watch in front of my own eyes that was attempting to hypnotize me into believing that it was real. Just like at night when we go to sleep and have random dreams, we're never really in control of what is happening in the dream. The dream is running its script and we're just passengers to it. Unless, of course, we are fully aware that it is just a dream. My true self has nothing to do with it. It doesn't exist in the same time and doesn't have the past or a future. So I can't go on anymore with a lie that is my life story. Just like a dream that I dream in my sleep, it is not my past. Sure. Just like for many others, my life has been filled with many highs and lows. In many ways, I could relate my journey to some elite athlete who was so obsessed and consumed with his goals that nothing else existed. A journey full of soul-crushing challenges, humiliation, trauma, limitations, doubts, and self-hatred. Years sacrificed to one goal, leading to a temporary sense of fulfillment, contempt, and freedom that soon followed with a loss of meaning in life and setting my life up for suicide. And even an opportunity for redemption that I wouldn't take, as by then it also felt just like another lie. The stories we can tell and share with others can be beautiful and inspiring things. I used to relive mine over and over in my head to make me somehow feel that all of this has a meaning. Even my spiritual self was just another lie, as it was part of the dream where I sought and tried to achieve something that I already am, impossible, delusional, and inverted. Probably just like many at this point in time, I feel very exhausted by the prison matrix we live in, even in its most pleasant aspects. The whole journey of revolution and fight with the old system, heroes who stand up against tyranny, is just another Hollywood scripted dream to me. And the more surreal the dream becomes and the more frightening they try to make it, the more I see a purpose of it all. It's not about winning or losing, freedom and suppression. It is not about you and your story in it. It is all about waking up to that part of you that has nothing to do with any of it, that can't be suppressed, controlled, and manipulated, the one that holds all the power. It is love. We all come here to snap out of this dream because behind it all is a new world that already holds within itself the solution to all of the problems that we try to fix in the old world. That is why most of us came here. I resonate with this more, telling where I come from, what I do, etc. So this is absolutely beautiful. And I thank you so much for that, because you're so on the button. We're transforming ourselves so much. And this is a great remembering, isn't it? This time now on the planet and who we have been. I mean, I was saying the other day, you know, all of everything that we've ever done in our life has really brought us to this point, hasn't it? And readying us for this time. And it is very much like taking the blindfolds off and really seeing the illusion that we've all thought we were living in some reality. And really it's been a total illusion. And who are we in this? You know, it's reminding us about who we really are. I thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it really all is turning now into it's like a surreal dream at this point already. Everything that happens in the world. I don't know if it's my personal experience but I believe it's with many people at the moment.
Yes.
Everything has become so surreal and weird. And for me personally, especially this summer, my whole life is like a movie. But it's oftentimes like a fever dream, you know. So many things are happening so randomly. Sometimes in the morning I wake up and I already know what's going to happen through my day. And then it just plays out. And it's not that I even manifested, but it's like I somehow saw the potentialities that can happen today in order to trigger me somehow. And they always play out.
Yeah.
And what I believe is that all of this chaos that comes in now in our lives, it's actually the expansion of love within us. And as that love starts to grow, which is us actually, as the more we start to remember ourselves, the more everything becomes more obvious, the more the whole reality, so I call it hologram, you know, it's like a simulation. It all becomes a bit, you know, like a fever dream in many cases. And I think more and more, most of us are now returning back to that question, who are we? I mean, everything in the world looks unfixable at the moment. Literally, it's unfixable. I mean, of course, you can go and protest and all this, but even that is in a certain way a dream. And I was asking myself that a lot as well. I'm like, I don't, because as an intuitive being, I always feel, okay, this choice, this direction, this action is going to lead. It has some kind of potential there. It's going to lead to something.
Yes.
Now with 90% of the things out there, I don't see that. It's just turning more into noise, and we are kind of like uniting on some level, and we're talking louder, but it just goes nowhere and no one listens, and it's like we're all in this trap. And the more time we spend there, the more we start to realize that actually what universe or whatever the purpose is to all of this, that's what's happening, is that eventually we're going to get only to the point where we can only rely on ourselves, to only rely on the power within ourselves.
Yes.
And it's going to be a journey, I think, of many quantum leaps and
it is definitely
reunion with love again, and which is us. Yeah.
It is, you know, and I've said it before. There was always that conversation, you know, you'd hear it, you know, and I know throughout my life I heard it all the time, people saying we need more love on the planet, you know, and we did, but we were that. But what we were, like, we were already that, What we weren't doing was actually allowing it out of us. You know, it wasn't about receiving more of it. It was actually about letting it come out of us, and allowing that to be here on the planet as us, you know. And now we're starting to see this happening, I mean, more and more. But yeah, it's a huge crazy time, eh? Like huge crazy. And things seem to be getting weirder. But yeah, I mean, you know, and the weirder it gets, the more people accept that weird and take it as being true, and that's really life, you know. And it's like I just sit back some days and think how
That's
crazy.
the most shocking thing about it all, huh?
Yes,
You know, people like, I bet you knew about this 20, 30, maybe your whole life about this.
I
And
did.
I bet as well that you, just like me and many other people, thought, oh, I can't imagine how would it be when one day everyone would see for what it is. And I always dreamed that since I was a little kid. I thought, oh, how wonderful would be the day when everyone would see all of this for what it is, when it would be so obvious, and finally I wouldn't look like a crazy person or whatever.
Yeah,
But what I never expected is that people are just going to continue complying, that they're going to delude themselves more and more
yeah.
uh, in order to run away from that pain, you know, in order to not face that pain with and discomfort that comes with it. You
Mm,
know?
mm. And I
But this
think,
really shows how, sorry, yeah.
no, you go, sorry.
This really shows how deeply they ingrained us, you know, because they, the way I see it, you know, they created a society that is incapable to mature.
Mm,
Because as much as when we look back in the history or some ancient tribes, they all have these rituals of, they don't call it like that, but I call it that, rituals of ego death, where you go from being a child, then you go to a certain age, I don't know, depends on the tribe, it's like 13, 14, 15 years old.
mhm.
And then you go through this whole initiation process where you go through that ego, death, and pain, and then you become mature. And then it's not about you anymore, me, and my safety. And you become part of this whole tribe. And it's this maturing process that
Yeah.
happens through it. And this, what they really teach there is for people to learn to deal with pain, how
Mm,
to go through pain, how to go through ego death, you know. When for us it's just distraction, pill, alcohol, and drugs and all of that, you know. And people are really suddenly just thrown in a cold water, and it's like, okay, go and
mm.
deal with it. And they
Yes,
don't know how.
that's right, they don't. And I think, you know, I know for me there was, you know, I went down the track of a lot of judgment to the world, you know, and out into the world. I was sitting back and
Mm.
looking at it all, and, you know, all my judgment was firing out there. You know.
Yeah, for me
And
as
then,
well at the
you
beginning.
know,
Yeah.
and it wasn't fun being in that, because I hadn't been in that
Mm.
space for a long time. And what I came to see was that this took me back like 20, 30 years to a space within myself that I felt I had come through from, and it was, you know, completed and done and not there anymore. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden I'm being discriminated against, you know, for certain reasons in different ways. And it felt like I'd gone back to when I was in my early teens, coming into being the clairvoyant medium, you know, the
Mm.
person that could see more than what others were seeing, had all
Mm.
these spirit around me, and, you know, all this time that was in my teenage years. You know, there weren't those people around. There wasn't a lot of people like that around. Today
Mhm.
they're everywhere, you know, everyone's woken up and everyone's a medium and a clairvoyant, and all of those things are happening, and it's great. But in my time it wasn't. And so I felt shut out. I felt like I wasn't accepted for that at all. And like
Mm.
you were saying, you know, I wasn't being heard in any way. And I was actually hiding from that myself. I was hiding it from to the world, you know, trying to put
Yeah.
myself away somewhere to be accepted without all that. And
Mm.
it felt like going back to that time again with all of this. And it was like, oh my gosh, I thought I'd done all that, you know, and then here we are again, and it was testing me.
Yeah.
about where am I
Yeah.
standing here? Where am I actually standing? What am I showing this world? You know, so I had to readjust myself to come back to standing in my own truth, being
Yeah.
absolute, this is who I am, and I don't mind what everyone else is doing, just don't poke it in my face. It's
Mm.
not my
Yeah.
thing, you know? So yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
interesting.
And it's, yeah, and it's all as well at the beginning what I felt, and I think the trap many fell in, and especially myself as well, was this conflict around people, those who refuse to see it and those who can see it. And it frustrated me so much and everything. And then eventually you start to understand that it's just pulling you back into the system in that way.
Yes, yes,
All that conflict, all that it's like, oh my God, how can you not see it? You want to go and
yeah.
smack someone over the head. I was here as well, ranting and getting ready for war and all this kind of stuff, and
Yeah,
working out. I was literally working out. I was like, I'm gonna go in the streets and fight and stuff and everything. It's like, nah, but that just feeds the system, that just feeds the
does.
illusion. And I guess that's why you as well felt that maybe you were kind of like thrown back into it again, because it was
Yeah,
so much in our face that we needed some time to just adjust to that. And
we
many
so
people
did.
we
Yeah.
just plugged in and it soaked us in and it took our
Mm,
life force again, and then it just went. It's
yeah.
this whole problem with the system is just, it's the same as fighting with a narcissist, as a narcissistic person. The
Yes.
more, it doesn't matter, you agree with him, don't agree, as long as you give him attention, as long as you argue with him, as long as you engage in his dynamic, you're still going to give him power all the time,
Mm,
and you'll never win that fight. And it's kind
yeah.
of tricky. Yeah.
It is tricky. It was tricky. I feel now I've come to a total acceptance, which is what,
Hmm.
you know, has really brought that freedom back for me. And what I also, as I was teaching many too, was that when we put our energy into something like that, anything, whatever we put our energy into, we're empowering that. We're giving
Yeah.
it power and we're empowering it to be bigger and more. So, I was like, no way am I doing that. Like, I'm pulling the plug completely. I'm not looking at it. I'm not giving it any energy whatsoever. And then that felt like I was sort of living two worlds, and it wasn't until I came into really
Yeah.
coming back to heart and love and just loving everything that was happening, because I could see the beauty in the chaos, the beauty of how many people were actually coming back to themselves, even, who weren't listening to their prompts from their soul self and their higher being or their light body, or they weren't listening to that. And then all of a sudden they started listening and they were taking
Yeah.
notice and realizing that actually that's not the best thing for me, or whatever their
Mm.
way that they came through it. But it was seeing these lights going on, and I thought, yes, this is what it's about. And I
Yeah.
did know about it from when I was a kid. When I birthed in, I knew I came in for this time. And I knew that everything that I was doing was leading me into this and up to that time.
Hmm.
But I didn't know how it was going to play out. And that was a bit of a shock. So
Yeah.
I had shell shock for a while there, for quite, about a year. I was
Hmm.
just stunned of this horridness that was going on. And I thought,
Yeah.
this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Thought it was going to be a nice, gentle little awakening for everybody, not this
Mm.
horrendous, nuclear
Well, there were
bomb
so many
going off.
theories at the beginning.
Yeah,
Everyone was predicting this will happen and that, and on that date we all gonna wake up and we're gonna
yeah,
go to sleep, and the next morning we'll wake up and the world will be a different place. It's like there was so much going on,
yeah.
but it's all up to us. And I feel like I really genuinely feel, and that's why I always feel like a passenger to all of this, that there
Mm,
is some higher power behind all of this, and
yeah.
it's really a journey about now to learning to surrender to that and be
Mm,
able to recognize that higher power is love, it is us, and it's something is navigating this. And even when we lose ourselves in that all illusion and all that discussion and all that fight with
yeah,
people now, there's something in us, either we feel that it's like having a fight with the wall. You
Yes.
argue with the wall and you don't get any feedback. There's nothing
Yeah.
comes out of it. It's just like it goes into emptiness. It's
Mm,
that or something like, smacks you out of that where you just like physically can't even do it at some point.
yeah.
And for each of one of us, it's not just collectively, but I feel like for each one of us, it's guiding us or us individually. And
Mm, mm,
this was, I think, probably one of the hardest things for me to adjust because uh, I was never intending really to be some, you know, attaining enlightenment or going on this spiritual path. For me, I always looked to the spirituality in more kind of like practical way.
yeah.
Because I wanted, some career, business, and all of these things, and I was going after that, and I was really identifying myself as a high performance individual, and it was like till age 24, and I was like going obsessively with sports, obsessively with studying, doing all kind of sales jobs, doing all kind of things, going out of my comfort zone, like uh, going to another country with no money just to test myself how I can perform in like extreme circumstances, and so my whole kind of like being was about this control, and I was like athletes, when they like I like to watch a lot of UFC fighter documentaries and how they work with their body and how they craft every movement and they think about their energy and how they work with stress and visualization and all of that. And it was all these small things. And that's how I always treated spirituality. For me, it was like a tool to save my energy, to kind of like be able to control my energy and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And and it was all kind of went till the point when I was 24 as well. It was this big. Uh, I was working in one place very very hard. I just gave 3 years of my life, just completely focused, just gave all of my energy, and nothing came out of it. And that was like very crushing for me. I was like, how I read
Mm.
in a book that hard work always pays off.
Yeah.
That was a big shock to my system. I was like, but I really was 200% committed to it, and it didn't work out, and it was like threw me back a bit. And I went for a walk one day. I quitted that place, and I was wondering to myself why. Like, and not only that I didn't got appreciated, not only that I didn't achieve what I wanted, I was humiliated along the way and made a villain and all of those things. I was like, why is that happening? How is that possible?
Mhm.
And there was this realization, like instant realization at some point, that actually what I was grinding there, it was all my self-hatred. I was just trying to prove myself that I'm worthy and stuff. And of course, the whole situation just reflected back my own self-hatred. But as that realization came, I had this like big opening in my heart for the first time opened. And I felt such a connection, such a instant sense and presence of love like I never felt in my life. And it was
Mm.
just everything just like clicked together. And funny, 5 minutes after that, I received a phone call, which in few months effortlessly gave me helped me to achieve the goal which I tried before to achieve for 3 years. It was like a miracle happened in my life, and everything was just going suddenly so spontaneous. And I was always I lasted for about a year in this kind of state. It was just beautiful. Every morning I would wake up and I would look around and I would see golden energy around me. And it was
Oh,
just this love all the time and this presence of love. And I didn't control anything in my life. Everything just like I sometimes would just intend to do something and it
yeah.
would happen for
Yes.
me. Everything was in this state of flow and everything. And I didn't understood really what was happening, but I was like, oh, this is cool. I made it,
Yeah.
I'm enlightened, whatever. And and I remember there was this one day where as well I had these spontaneous days where I like when it's a day off, I would wake up and I would say, okay, whatever this power is, guide me today. And I
Mm.
would hear a whisper in my head, put on your shoes, go out. And this one day I was like, put my shoes out, I go out and I walk. And I lived in a big city then, and I walked through the city, and then it's like, get on a train. And I go and I sit on a train, and then the train finally goes to the sea. And it's like as well, like this guiding voice, get off the train. I
Mm.
go off the train, and I'm blissed out all of this. I'm just like going with the flow. I don't mind. It's beautiful. Like take me wherever. and I went and I sat down on the beach, and there was this like a pile of sand on the beach, and I just was just like sitting there, and suddenly I feel this enormous vortex like above my head, just something opened up, and I just went somewhere. It was, I felt such love, and I was just like, just absolute ecstasy, and I just closed my eyes, but the interesting thing, I opened my eyes a bit later, and it was as this vortex was happening around my head, that the seagulls from the sea picked up on it, and they were all circulating around my head in a dance like that.
Wow.
And I don't even remember for, I don't think it was hours, it was probably like half an hour or something. I just closed my eyes, and the next moment I opened my eyes, and there was literally a crowd of people standing around me. And I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? But they saw the seagulls flying in an interesting way, and they kind of were standing there taking pictures and stuff. And I
Wow.
even have a photo as well from that. But and I couldn't under, but anyway, then I went home, and I was like, what was that experience? And what I started to receive this channeling, that it's the new energy. You just were the catalyst. You opened the portal for some kind of new energy to come in. I
Yeah.
didn't know anything, any of these things. I never read the books about it or anything, but it was such a clear message: new energy, new consciousness coming in. And of course, as observing that, channeling within myself, the information somehow manifests around me, and I find books where I can read about it, or something online just pops up and stuff. And I feel like for about a year, that year, I had like an experience of maybe like 10% of what the new world is like, and what it
Yes.
is to be living with our true spiritual self, when
Yeah.
we are full embodiment of love, and how there is no grinding ambition or anything. You just surrender to whatever intent you have, and it just kind of, not everything, of course, there's something still making sure that, there's,
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, I want $1 million and it's going to be in front of, maybe it can, but not, I guess it's more like for what else, whatever you have intended to learn here.
Yes.
It was this beautiful state of flow all the time, and just beautiful, like I healed birds, and all kind of things were just spontaneous. I wasn't even thinking.
Mm.
And so then the realization came, that's the new energy, that's the new consciousness that came in. I was like, wow, this is beautiful. I made it. My life is perfect now. And what I didn't understood afterwards was the massive death that came with it. And
Yeah.
not only the death, and I'm not generally paranoid, but throughout these, it happened 8 years ago with me. Throughout these years, I feel that not only that my whole system collapsed afterwards, I feel like I'm being somehow, with frequencies, with all this AI, I'm oftentimes being targeted. And there's such uh, unexplainable bad things happened in my life, just like planted, just pure evil. Uh, and literally, yeah, when that I went through that year, and then just my whole life collapsed. Everything went to complete zero, and I've been in absolute hell, and I didn't understand what was happening with me. All amounts of shame and guilt and fear, everything I was always afraid of, and not just from this life, it was just all manifesting in life.
Yeah.
And it sucked me dry so much that for the first time, I was on such a low state energetically, because I was being plugged out of the system.
Yeah.
So my energy field was not connected to the, what I call, pendulums of this matrix.
Yeah.
By pendulums, I mean there's these consciousness energy fields, in every workplace you go, in relationship, family, and all of them. When you
Yeah.
plugged in, you kind of shared energy with them. When I was being cut off from them, I'm like, I needed to learn. It was like learning to breathe through a straw. I needed to learn to build up my own energy and not be dependent on the matrix of the system.
Yes.
And so, and then when I was this low, I understood that actually there's so many things in our lives that we think we control, we think we made it, that we think we created, but it's actually all is like, at least in my experience, the way I saw it, all is like a gift. like given to you, these opportunities, this story, this story, this story, and some of them are very nice, and those ones who have the nicest ones oftentimes are the ones who are the deepest ones in the matrix, and then they don't have that discomfort and stuff. And I was around some rich people as well at that time, and I just couldn't believe it. They just sit, and it's like money grows on trees, and then it just like that falls from the sky. It's this and that, and and they think they are making it, and but when I dig deeper and I look into it through my perspective, when I'm cut out and when I'm not part of this anymore, when my energy is not attached to it, and when I'm literally in a space of nowhere, and I see that they are not even making it, that they are living into this kind of like a dream state reality. And they are doing some kind of level of service to the system, and the system rewards them by uh, you know, giving them more opportunities and stuff. They don't even notice. It can literally fall for them from the sky in front of them, like a bag of money or whatever. They don't even notice. They're like, I made it. I'm so important. I made this, and that's how the system keeps running.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I'm thinking more about the people who intend to stay in this system so much, because they always had this like a system, like a energy system, the whole like a matrix that was supporting them supplying them with energy, supplying them with their safety. It doesn't matter that they're in a prison, but it was like giving them, and they're literally on some kind of almost like energetical and physiological level are dependent on that system, because they need that energy from there, because they are, of course they can learn, but they are almost energetically dependent from that for their own survival.
Yeah,
it's their ego, of course. Their true self has nothing to do with it, and
that's
why
right.
So they're fighting for their lives over the delusion. They're fighting for their lives like as if they're gonna die.
Yeah. And it's myself being in that space, always had the observer here, and recognizing that, but also recognizing that I was in the dream, the hologram, the whole thing, and recognizing that didn't fit me. It wasn't my thing. I was in it, but it wasn't my thing. I didn't feel like I had taken part in creating that. And why am I in this then? And in myself too, I went through a death in 2016. And I feel like since then I've been recreating myself again, new. And checking myself all the time on, have I stepped back into the driver's seat, or I'm still the passenger in the back, like where am I in this? And it's been it was very interesting, but the falling away, everything falling away and shutting down on us when we come through that birthing, the rebirth and the death state, it's not comfortable. It's a horrible place to be.
It's horrible.
It's terrible. And I was actually literally in a gestation for 9 months in this really dark hole in 2016. And I birthed through on the first day of October. So on the 10th month out of the 9 months of gestation, I birthed into this light. I could breathe fully into my lungs again. It was like, oh my God, I'm home again, after being in this dark pit. It was horrible for 9 months. And everything, what I really came to learn in that was that I just had to trust, and I always know what I'm up to. I've always known when I'm going through something, like in 2011, when my light body was actually activated. I was suspended out of my body for a month, for the whole August that month. And I was taken through it in a slow motion so that I could help and assist others that were going through the similar thing. And so this state was the same. It was like having the awareness of what was going on. I knew I was going through a death, and I knew that I'd rebirth somewhere, but it was like, how long down the track is that going to be? I had no idea. But I just had to really trust, and everything fell away, like income, because I didn't have anything to hold on to anymore. It was like, and I really had to trust that everything was going to be okay. And it absolutely was, but it was so not comfortable, because we're not in control in a feeling sense of being in control of it. It's just happening. And we've got to
Yeah.
ride that wave, you know, wherever it takes us to. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very uncomfortable space.
It really is about that trust. And I think experience like that can give you very clear perspective of what's on a consciousness level is happening in this world, you know,
Yeah.
because we are collectively all dying. The system is dying.
Mm,
There's no way out but to surrendering to the higher power. We
yeah.
can pretend that we're in control. We can fight. And I'm not against people going out and protesting on the streets and
No, that's some
everyone
people's
has to
job,
do
eh?
their role.
Yeah.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
people have to go through that, and it's great on some level. And who knows, maybe tomorrow I'll be on the street and protesting. You know, it's
Yeah,
always,
me too.
you know, and so I'm not against that, but it gives you the perspective that because situations like experiences like you described now, it puts you in a place where it's like it's impossible for me. Like I have no energy, I have no money, I have literally no self-esteem anymore. No, I don't even know what's going on in my head anymore. I have
Mm,
zero control over my life, and it's this impossible situation. And then you understand that your little you, the ego that's dying, it controls nothing in here, and that
yeah.
you eventually get to the point where you just surrender to something higher. And it I had these experiences where it's like one week my life is like this, and the next week I'm completely somewhere else at the other end of the world already. My life is completely changed. And just like
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
it's like a quantum leap. And
Yeah.
I'm not in control of it as well. It's just like something opened up in me, something changes, something like here's the money, go do this and that.
Yeah. Yeah. It is definitely about the trust. But in this now, in this surrendering now, I think, you know, for me, I'm just conscious of where I plug in. You know,
Yeah,
you know, when I'm sort of like, because, you know, to go out and run workshops or do that sort of thing, you know, you're stepping back in, where I am anyway. When I feel like that, I feel like I'm stepping into these cities that I know have all the 5G going on, and, you know, there's all this stuff, and I can feel the interference. And I consciously have to really set my field up so that I'm bulletproof to it, in a sense. It's not going to affect me. I have to really be
yeah,
conscious of what I'm up to. Whereas before, you know, you're just traveling and you're doing your thing, and it wasn't so much like that. There were pockets of it, but
mm,
now it's so we're just encased in it really all the time. So for me, it's like coming back to exactly what you were talking about in the very beginning, of opening ourselves again to this love state and really embodying that and allowing that to come out of us, you know, to be able to, you know, emanate through this field that is this planet and humanity, and this
mm,
conscious, you know, collective consciousness that's there, and all that
yeah.
fear. And to, you
It's
know,
yeah.
the other part I was
It,
just going to add in there is also about the energy work, you know, like actually being conscious of those energy pockets, of those collective consciousness states. And if I'm feeling, you know, I know I've had days where I've just ridden through these waves and helped to transmute a lot of those bands, you know, of fear bands that humanity have really expelled out there. And I've been able to help
mm,
transmute a lot of that through my body for the planet and humanity. And those days have been very heavy.
yeah,
But, you know, knowing that
yeah,
it wasn't my stuff, this wasn't all mine, it was too big for all
exactly.
mine,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Mm.
and I know there's a lot of people on the
I've
planet
been in bed
going,
for 2 weeks
yes,
exactly because of this. Literally, completely, I thought I'm gonna die or something, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's what you know. This it's what I call it's a war on frequency now.
it is. Yeah,
Whoever has that, I see the most random things happening. People who have high frequency, you know, some of them getting just deleted from Facebook like that without even posting anything controversial or something. It's
yeah,
something is watching them. And for
yeah,
me, it's the same. I get the most random, most literally disgusting crap happening with me just out of nowhere. Boom.
yeah,
Especially when my frequency is so high. And I
yeah.
really feel being targeted, you know, like you mentioned as well, this 5G places, you know, because
Mm,
what is that 5G? You know, it's like literally artificial intelligence living there in the ether here, you know, in
Yeah.
the level of frequency, and it's watching you, and it knows what kind of frequency we all hold. And
Yeah.
the more free you are, the more boom. And this
Mm,
experience, which I in the article which you read at the beginning, where I had all these thoughts in my head, and then I just had like, "Ugh, enough," and then I just like snapped out completely, and I realized, and I saw my whole life just playing out as a dream, and this
yeah.
personality and everything that I always had and I thought was me, that it was just literally a character from the dream. And it's what the most intense feeling about it was that something else was doing me. I was not even part of it. It's like
Yes.
this guy, Vitaly, something, ambitions and all of this stuff. It was someone was doing me. And it was like, you know, like in a dream, we have all kind of personalities in our dream. It can be so weird sometimes and stuff. And as I snapped out of it, and then I just like went, and I had this strong. I mean, I always knew and I have felt it and I have seen it before, but now it was more profound than ever before. I was just like, oh my God, I'm living in a hologram. I'm living in a some kind of grid, which
Mm,
is not mine, and it just like running its own course there and playing its own games, and
yeah.
it's like it feels artificial. It doesn't even feel like you know, natural. It feels like it's been planted here on this
Mm,
planet,
mm,
and that feeling was very strong. And of course, the next day after that experience, I'm just like, I wake up and I completely distance myself from the world, and I'm completely in myself there, feeling this true self of mine, which is not part of this dream anymore. And it's so powerful and so, you know, nourishing. It's so amazing. It's like a literally like a sun, you know, you feel
mm. The warmth.
saturated and
Mm,
everything. And I went out for a walk with my dog, and I look at the sky, and all I can see is just like the sky is me. I am the sky, and I feel myself all over the sky, all over this planet.
mm.
It's not that I am so big, but I'm part of whatever is this, and it's
Yes.
above this hologram that we live in, and it's this matrix of nature and love and everything. And it's like I
Mm,
feel whatever experience I had there, that it was part of me, was activating it even more there.
yeah.
And what happens afterwards, I'm just completely for 2 weeks I can't get out of bed, I can't sleep normally, I'm completely exhausted all the time, and all kind of just most terrible, disgusting things are happening around us here, to
Yeah.
the point where, you know, I'm not going to go into all the details, but I can't even really take my dog in a garden. I can't really be outside, and it's like all the time, boom, 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 something happens, and uh, there's days when you lose yourself completely, and you have these experiences nasty within yourself,
Yeah.
and you know it's not you, and it's all playing out there, doing its
Mm,
own thing, you know, and as you know yourself very much, and it's this
yeah.
whole embodiment of love, it explodes the whole grid there, and then we are
Mm,
somehow connected to it there, and all these ancestor lines and everything starts to get activated.
absolutely. I had an experience, was I think after the 2016, no, it was before then. Anyway, I had an experience where I burst through from inside out. So before that, you know, we're drawing energy through, you know, if we're doing healing work or whatever we're doing, we're sort of sitting and bringing it into us. And, you know, even in meditation, we're sort of doing that in a sense, eh? And this was the other way around. It started where I had 3 sort of initiations into, or 2 before the big one. And it was that what was happening was this started coming out of me. I wasn't bringing it in and then it was coming through and flowing through me. It was actually coming from within me out. And I noticed this difference, and it was really powerful. And I thought, holy moly. And there was twice you're building. The first one was quite mild, but it was still strong. Second one was bigger and stronger.
Mm.
And I went into a little bit of fear of, oh my God, will my heart and my body, my organs actually, you know,
Will
handle
your
this?
heart explode? Yeah.
Yes, it was just,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
And then the third time was at a healing evening that I was running it in my home, and there was about 15 people there, and I got onto the healing table, and in this process, when this energy started brewing within me, I'd have to put my arms out into a cross, and I'd be in this cross position, and my heart just burst wide open further and further. And this night, it absolutely just broke. Whoa, it went powerful as. And I went into nucleus. I was a nucleus. Everything disappeared. The house, the people, everything. And I was in the center of a galaxy in this universe. And I was that. And I realized that saying, we are the center of a universe, you know, we are that. And this was me there. And I could feel the energy of everybody. I knew the thought process of everyone in the room. I was in this space, and the girl behind me that had come in to do some healing work, she thought on me, was actually standing there. Her knees were buckling with the energy that was coming from me. And a friend went up behind her and put her hands up on her back to support her. And she said, man, the energy was just beautiful. She didn't want to leave. And that, I don't know how long I was out for. It was like for quite a while. And when I came back in, everyone was like, what the hell just happened? You know, they were in fear. And I was trying, while I was out there, I was trying to bring them out of their minds and come back into heart and just experience this. This was just about an experience. Didn't need to be judged in any way. Or anyway, everyone went into story, and there was a lot of fear. But it was in that point there where I realized that what we do is this chakra suit we have on is definitely that connection to the divine, which we need to have to keep us here in that connection. But once we come into our higher light being, which isn't about memory, it doesn't have the story, it's just a knowing, a sensing, a love, then that energy there and that light body that we are, that Merkaba, the activation of that happened for me in 2011, things started really changing for me. And I could see that I was driving a different machine. You know, this vehicle was different. And in that space there, that was about this whole thing coming out of me. And what happens is when you move into that lighter body, you're now your own power source. You aren't actually generating from how we were in our chakra suit. So it shifts over, and that's where I feel you're in that space where, in a sense, still maybe activating from the chakra suit, when really it's about switching in and letting that one go. And I don't, you know, I mean, it just organically happens, but sometimes I know in my transition through that, I was still pulling from that old way that I was and draining more and more from it, because it wasn't where I needed to get my energy from anymore. There wasn't actually the energy there for it, if you get me. It wasn't coming from that source anymore. I became the source. It shifted. And I feel for that there, what happens now is that I can still feel myself move out from that in a state of being. In a sense, it's like becoming one with everything. So therefore nothing is an interference. There is no opposing anything, because we are it. We're everything. We are it. So there's nothing opposing. And so that changed the whole thing for me. And when this whole thing set up, this whole 3 years, 2 years stuff, you know, happened, I felt myself moving back into that old power and that old matrix, that feeling of being pulled back into it, you know, through all the narrative, all the story, all the emotional roller coaster that came. And I really had to come back to align myself back to where I knew I really am and who I am in it, and not allow this to take the power back that I had gained. And all my life, Vitaly, I felt hunted by that darkness. It was like, as a kid, being aware, I had so many things going on around me that was so dark. And at night time, when I was in my bedroom on my own at night as a kid, and it was this feeling of being hunted. You know, I'd be trying to hide from all this dark energy that was trying to get me, it felt like. And it did, they were, in a sense. And what I came to realize in my teen years was that for me to not have fear, because I was in terrible fear, I'd just about suffocate myself every night in bed, trying not to breathe so they didn't hear where I was, or, you know, it was horrible. And what I came to realize was that if to drop out of the fear, I needed to understand what was this dark energy. What is that actually? So I went on that trip, and I found myself moving more into those spaces and adjusting myself to it, to understand it. And what I came to realize was that everything plays out, everything is a play. Like our intention, whatever the intentions are, and I don't believe I had intention of darkness around me, but it was there.
Yeah.
So I couldn't deny it. I had to face it front on and go, okay, what's this about? And what I came to realize was a lot of the energy or work that I did in spirit realm was actually
triggering the matrix.
Well, it was absolutely triggering the matrix, but it was about working not with the darkness, but almost with it and removing it from spaces. So it wasn't, I did start out by going battle up, you know, I'm going to get you, you know, you're not living in this space, we'll clear that out, you know. But more and more I came to realize that this was the actual reflection of self in many ways, you know, our darkest spaces within ourself and our shadows and all of that. And so those who I assist helping with those sorts of energies around them, it's about where is this within you, you know, so that before it was just a battle, let's clear it out. Now it's about that transition through it, because it is how it is and it is what it is. But it is all us. It's still us.
Yeah. All those dark places and
but it isn't who we are.
It goes deep, and it goes deep within ourselves as well. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, how much was there from ancestry or whatever, you know? I don't even try to identify it anymore. And it's what happens sometimes. It's here, and it's like me and Janine, we sit and I'm like, especially when my field gets activated, there's such crazy things happen. I'm not going to go into its long stories, but it's like, it's so obviously evil. And I'm like thinking, and I know it's me. I know it's something from me. It gets activated, but I'm like, what the hell? What I don't, you know, the only scenario I can spin in my head, what the hell I was doing in my previous lives, because it's like, it's insane.
Well, you know, if we look back over history, you know, we've played out history. We've been the souls that have come in and played out all that old stuff that's happened on the planet. And a lot of it was by default because we didn't realize what we were up to. Now we get an idea of what we've been doing and how we want to shift that, you know, so we start now creating from a new space. But up until that point, if we look at history, it's been so dark. You know, it's been so dark, and it's always been ruled by the church. You know, whatever that church is, it's been ruling the world. And so we've now started like deactivating, like you're saying, we're pulling the thread on it. We're moving ourselves out of and unplugging from that place. But it's not like it's something that's been, it's like, I know people are saying they have control over us, but they only have control because we didn't know they did. You know, it's not that it's, I feel like I was blaming them. I was pointing finger and I was going, you know, you. And now it's like, well, actually what we've done is we've allowed it. Now it's time to not allow it. That's all. It's just change the program, shift our perspective and move this way instead of continually going into that. And that's what I've been doing in my world. And that's what I'm trying to,
I'm trying to talk about the same with other people, because in my own experience, I have been in places where I have been so stuck and it was no way out. And then understanding that at some point, finding that place within yourself where you're above all of that, where just, it's not that you become something, it's like you rediscover your own power then.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then your world individually, doesn't matter what happens around the world and what goes
That's
on
right.
in politics scene, individually, there's every solution you ever need. You're protected, you're guided, you can manifest, and it's not even about the
Absolutely.
manifestation, but it's like kind of like a manifestation. You can
Mm.
just navigate yourself into places, and that's the way out of this now,
Mm.
and
It is,
so
absolutely. Yeah. And I know, you know, another part, because I do a lot of cellular work, you know, cellular memory stuff, assisting people in and retrieving memories and working on the emotional that keeps that round and round and round we go.
yeah.
And in that processing, I broke 2 toes, and I was able to repair my toes. The bones weren't just broken, they were absolutely smashed, and I went and had an x-ray. And I had students that were coming for development classes, and they saw my foot. It was swollen up with these 2 broken toes. 24 hours later, it was back to normal. It had bruising still. I hadn't worked on the bruising. I didn't think about the bruising. I was concerned about the bones. But they came in and saw my foot repaired, and they realized that what we teach is actually something you can do, and it is profound, you know. And from that too, you know, because I always knew that's how we can do this is what we're capable of. That there also was a backup for me. It was like confirming all the time, this is who we really are. And so for me, I wasn't going to drop out of any of that knowing to play in that game. You know, it was like it was taking everything from me that I knew I was. And then there was that day where it was like, well, actually no more. You know, I don't care what anyone else is doing with it. That's their game. It's not my game. So I started really pulling myself away and checking. Even now, I still check, where am I still maybe plugged in any way? And there's certain things we can't quite get out of. You know, we still got to pay taxes or do whatever that system says in those sorts of ways. But otherwise, you can live it
Yeah,
and
but
start
even
creating.
with those things, in my experience, financial things and everything, I have no fear of putting everything in online in for me, my work, and things like money and stuff. I'm not living rich by no means. I would wish, but that I feel like will come as well. But when it comes to commitment, I never even allow myself to think about the money, how I'm gonna survive, will I have a shelter or something. I completely like leave that up to something else now,
Yeah.
and I just like go. When I commit, I go 100%, and
Yeah.
which is interesting. That experience where I had with the birds and this love year and everything, I
Yeah.
forgot that there was a voice in my head that said to me once, are you ready? It wasn't a voice, it was like more like inner, my own, some
Yes.
source connection talking to me. And it
Yeah.
said, because I was feeling all that love, and then it said, are you ready to step over the cliff and trust that the bridge will appear?
Mm.
So, yes, I'm ready. And I was like, yeah, I was so excited. No problem. I have all the faith. And then, of course, I made that step. And of course, yeah, the bridge appeared in many occasions. But as I'm making that step, I lost faith so many times, and I was so
Yeah.
angry and everything. And that's the true experience of being tested in this, because it's, what you as well said about this, where you felt yourself as the center of the universe and you opened up and everything.
Mm.
This is what I'm personally struggling, but because the way I'm kind of looking at you is like, and what I want to ask is how easy it is to embody that love for you on a physical, mental level, and do you kind of like flow with it more, or is it like a struggle for you on some level as well?
Um, I flow with it. I feel like I flow with it, and I can see the unconditional love that I've come into, and how when things happen around me, I can feel myself still loving the person that might have just punched me in the face. Say, you know, not that that's ever
Yeah.
happened, but you know what I mean. Um, and I can see how I've taught my children that unconditional love, that there's always, you know, I remember the story on Facebook about a man who had his 3 children, 3 or 4 kids were on the bus. He was sitting just sort of not paying much attention to these 4 children who were just running riot throughout the bus, and the people on the bus were getting annoyed with him, and why isn't he just, you know, looking after these kids and stopping them from running everywhere, and all of that sort of thing. And the story goes that in the end of the story, it tells us that he'd just come from the hospital and his wife had just passed away. Their mother had just died. And he was in his grief, obviously, you know, I mean, you can imagine. And, you know, in that moment, it was like, we'd never know what's going on with the person. We might sit in judgment. Everyone was sitting in judgment of that man with these children. They had no idea what he'd just experienced and how he was truly feeling in here. And that always stuck with me. It was like, we just do not know. And I remember even the day, just, you know, my dad passed away in April, and it was like the day that happened, life carried on. Everything else was carrying on out there. And what I had to do with myself was just carry on. I mean, that's really just what we do, don't we? And nobody, I mean, there were people that were aware of what had been going on for me, but that world out there didn't know when I was going down to the, you know, funeral home to organize things, or they didn't know where I was going and how I might have been feeling that day. Nobody takes notice of a lot of things that go on, but we tend to judge it. And our standing back and looking into it, we tend to judge it, but we have no real idea of what the true essence of it is that's being experienced by that person we might be judging. So I tend to now, everything is perfect. It's always perfect, you know, and I mean, things can still get me, like, you know, there's certain things that might tweak me a bit, you know, and trigger me. But I tend to move through that a lot quicker now than what I used to. And I can see it for what it really is. You know, when I come out of my ego or my mind and the story that I might be running on what's just happened and why I'm judging it, then I come back to this place of it's always perfect. You
It's
know,
naturally happens now already. Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Just get eased into it gently and stuff.
yes,
Yeah.
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 But yeah, it's I don't know. I feel so much freer. Like there's such a freedom that I can feel within myself from not having to bother about what people think of me or how they see me. I don't give anything about
Yeah.
that anymore. And it used to run me. Like I was always conscious of what I was doing. I'd be picking at myself a lot to try and adjust myself to who is around me and what they might feel they need from me, and people pleasing all the time. Now it's not my problem. Not my problem. Anyone has a problem with me, it's their problem, not mine. So it's freeing very
It's
much.
interesting. It's like what I said as well before we recorded, that I the way I felt you, the way I tuned into your field, that's exactly what I feel from you. This true embodiment of love, and it's so gentle but so strong and firm as well in you there. And it's very grounded even, I would say.
It is
And
very
the
grounding.
reason why I'm asking that, because Janine as well, my girlfriend, and she as well, she just flows with it. She just takes it in and she enjoys it. I have those days as well, and it's a beautiful experience. But for me, it gets really dark. It gets
Yeah.
really painful for me to get there. And not that I'm even trying to get there, but all
I
the
think
traumas, and I look at it through more of a point of the masculine wound as well in this world.
yes.
I feel like I'm very much in a masculine grid there, and I'm trying to resolve this whatever masculine wound is there, and
Mm,
it's so terrifying. The love for me as a man, not so much at the moment. A year ago, it was the most terrifying thing,
yeah.
just to embody that, just to feel, not even like, I don't mean love in this kind of like romantic and nice way, oh,
Yeah.
I love everyone, but this embodying my own true power, because opening the heart.
Mm,
And it's not only that it's like frightening for me, but when I even try to do it, there's like these gatekeepers in the matrix,
Yeah.
and they immediately something awful happens in my life, which just like throws me back in again, makes me shut down my heart, and I'm like terrified when I open it. I get so terrified sometimes, and that's where
Mm.
I'm struggling with. I sense from you there's a lot of embodiment in the.
Yes,
For me,
there
it's
is, and it
still
is
such a
very grounded.
journey. Yeah.
But what I feel there, like, I think the one thing for me coming into that was that I don't, and this is what I had to keep reminding myself of in this last 2 years, say, is that we're not in a battle. Like, I could go and battle up. My part wasn't to go and protest on the street either. My part's been
Yeah.
about directing people back to light. That's what my part has been in this whole 2 years or
Yeah.
more. But when I go into it being a battle, or life itself being a battle, that's when I start coming away from that heart space and that love. So if we think back to everything in our world is what we have created into it, we've created everything in your world you've created. It's all there because you have brought it in, you've created it into your world. So therefore, all of that you feel is like me saying about the darkness when I was a kid and how I felt it was hunting me. That was me coming into fear and giving it a story. Whereas actually what it was there showing me was this was the other side of the coin, and it was there to teach me. And once I took it on as being the teacher, which everything is, it's got a lesson for us and it teaches us something. Once I realized that it was there for me to teach me something that was going to assist me later on, which it has, absolutely. So that there changed the whole way. I wasn't in battle, I wasn't in fear. I was embracing it, as I did with the reptilian world, many reptilians that I've worked with. And in the around 2011, I had multiple thousands of them come through around my home. And I actually had a friend who rang me and said, Mandy, are you aware that you've got all these reptilians around your home? I said, yes, I am. And what they'd done is they'd come in and asked me to assist them to leave. They didn't like what their big characters that were playing out leadership were doing, and they wanted to break free of that. And so in that assistance, I only had love for them. They were just another part of myself that was wanting to be free. And so, I don't know, it's once we realize, when we come to the real truth and within us, that we are every single thing, and everything that I have in my world is what I've brought in. I've created that into being. So it's the same as, like, working energetically with people, clearing fields or helping to bring back fragmented parts of selves, or whatever the story might be that they're requiring. In that, somebody who's been, abused a lot over their life as a child and has grown up very angry, that anger itself, when they embody that enough, that can create an entity. It actually can create a formed part of themselves that is now an entity. And so those entities are part of what is playing out in here now too.
Yeah.
And so
It's like an addiction as well.
absolutely. So it's be aware of what we're actually creating into form too, and what we have done in our life is created things into form, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's coming
And,
back.
and these entities that get created, they are terrified of love.
Yes.
Of that love, and that's my journey. I
Yes.
have big traumas from childhood and all of those things, and um, it's brutal, and it's extremely abusive for me. That's how it feels
Yeah.
when I'm trying to go into that. Doesn't mean that I'm not. I have no choice even at this point. It just all comes up. But as that experience, it like enormous abuse within myself, And not only that I experience it within myself, it manifests around me instantly. You know, it's like I can create such a terrible energy around me, people can't even stand next to me. It's like
Yes, because
so
you're
awful.
powerful in it. You are powerful. And that's that
Yeah.
part. When
For
I,
me, it's very inverted, very
yeah,
inverted there.
yeah,
I can't reverse it. I was talking about it with Janine yesterday. I said it's awful. It's so much power there, but it's like runs its own course and I can't control it. And it's just always negative and I can't turn it into positive. And if I try to do it, then it's like, you know, then my mind and my ego, everything kicks in and I'm like, no, it's nonsense.
mm.
Yeah, sorry, I cut you out there.
No, you're right. And that that there, I'd want to change the word can't. Because you will be able to, and you are. It's just you know, I just denied things. So it got to a point where I'd worked on enough of my emotional stuff, you know, that I felt like I had freed myself, like not completely, but I was in a space where I'd changed the program, you know, and life was moving in a different way and I was attracting different things in, like everything shifted. But again, it's checking myself, because there would be times where I'd flick back into a part of that thread, you know, that was still sort of dangling. But there were times when I had a little back thing that would happen, you know, so whenever I had, you know, I'd had abuse and rapes and bashings and things like that as in my younger years. And so whenever a male said anything derogatory to me, then that would tweak my back and my back would twist. I'd get a twist. I could barely walk. I'd be, you know, hunched over like an old crone, and my right side would come round and twist around over my left side. And what I came to realize was that this was my masculine self, my right side masculine, coming over it, protecting my left feminine. It was very beautiful when I clicked to what was actually happening, and that what I, you know, still needed to work on, obviously, in some parts of it, was the abuse side of it, the words and the abuse coming from male. So that I'd worked on. And then it was just one morning, I went to plug the vacuum cleaner into the wall socket and my back tweaked, and here I was in this position again. And it was the day before somebody had said something, a guy had said something to me, and it took that time before it started circulating back in and into my consciousness and picked up where I had still obviously a little bit of wounding left. And in that moment, I just said, enough. This is not of my consciousness anymore. And within a second, my back straightened up. I never had it happen again. So there were times when I knew I'd done the work on the stuff and I was not going to do any more because it was done. Otherwise, we can always pull something else out and something else out and something else out. We can find it if we really want to. And I was just over it. I knew that I had done enough, and that
You
was
have got to the point where it's like you were not taking it anymore. Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes we have to take control in a way that is beneficial for us to take that control, like I did there. I stated no more. That was it. And I believed it was not of my consciousness anymore. I'd done the work. It didn't need to play out any longer. And it hasn't. So it's great. But, you know, there was a lot of processing before that happened. But, you know, we could just keep going and keep going and keep going. And a lot of the stuff that came up over that 2 years too, you know, with the world crazy, that was going back into that was bringing up old abuse and old, you know, because we all realized really that we were in this really abusive relationship with our governments, you know, that, oh my goodness, this, and then it was like, well, oh, poor me, you know, this is what they're doing to me. And then it was like, again, I said, cut that out. You don't even need to go there. You know, that's a story. And a lot of the story, you know, and I often say this to people, why do you want to tell yourself that story when it's so upsetting? Like, why do we want to do that to ourselves? So I stopped telling myself terrible stories and going over and
Yeah.
making a story up about something. You know, I catch myself doing it, and then I'll stop, just instantly stop.
Yeah.
It's no
And
point.
the feeling of it is an instant relief.
It
And that's
is.
what I say to people, just turn off your Facebook, put your phone aside or something, forget about it. You don't need to worry about it or think about it. Just
Mm,
observe yourself for one day. It's
yes,
such a, yeah, it's all shit. Everything is, still fucked up around the world, but
it
it's like,
is.
you don't need to be actively in it all the time and stressing about it. Just if you don't take care of yourself now, it's
Yeah,
just going to swallow you, and you're the priority in all of this.
absolutely. Yeah.
Our
And we have to turn
consciousness,
it
our
off
feeling.
somewhere. Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Mother Teresa always came in for me, in the way that she always worked through life, and her life was that, when war was happening, she put up signs of peace. She
Mhm.
didn't, stop the war. It wasn't about stop the war. It was about peace. And so
Mhm.
she advocated for peace rather than stop the war, don't go into war.
Mhm.
She never mentioned the word war. She only ever focused on peace. And that always is something that just keeps coming back to me at times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what another is just big thing. What's happening? Everything is new now. All of this, even what we know from history, how to deal with it, even the
Mm,
whole spirituality and all the practices that we did, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it like this. I can't do this practice. I can't meditate with this kind of intention anymore. I can't play this game anymore. And it's like, understand that this new consciousness that comes in, it's so new that we're literally are learning fresh. And we have to, that's the difficult part, I think, for many people is to let go of all of that old one. Let
yes.
go of all those parts and identity within ourselves. And even to the people who think they are awake, from out of this matrix. No, there's so much to come with all of this. And it's really just tuning in and adapting ourselves to this new wave of this new energy, which is going to
It
be
is. Mm,
completely going to transform the way we approach spirituality and in general, just any kind
mm,
of connection with ourselves and stuff.
yeah. And it's a beautiful energy when you sit in it and you just allow, to feel it. It is a beautiful energy, and there's nothing we need to do with it. I mean, it is us. It's who we
Yeah.
are. And it's just allowing it to be there. And I know, when I went to Nucleus in that experience, and the the initiations that were brought in before that, and the power coming out of me, I knew in that moment that that's what we're all afraid of. We're
Yeah.
really afraid of our own power. And I
Our own
was
power.
always
Yeah.
afraid of mine, because I always knew at some point I'd used it in a dark way and I'd done some damage. I hadn't always been
Mm.
peace, love, and light. And I was afraid that I would get power hungry and that I would want to use it in a way that wasn't nice. But for me, it was
It's
like, oh my God,
impossible in that
that's
sense.
just another
Yeah. You don't
story.
even
'Cause
need to do it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's another story, because it's not even who I am. I wouldn't do that. So then when I came back to that place, it was like, yeah, bring it on. That's my haka. I just bring it on. I'm here to experience, and I love experiencing, and especially energy. I love it. So I'm always racing ahead, really. I think Spirit have always sort of
Mm.
had reins on me going, hang on,
Yeah.
it's not time yet, Mandy, wait. Yeah. So
So I'm the opposite of that. It
are you?
raises me away. I'm like, no, I don't want to. I'm sick of it already.
Yeah.
Even this,
No.
talking about the fear, even this experience where you had, I know exactly what you talk about. I haven't had it on such a, but I know exactly what you talk, because believe it or not, for 2 years, almost every night, I have heart palpitations, intense, insane heart palpitations. Something tries to burst through me, boom, boom. Like it gets crazy in here almost every single night, literally every night. And there's exceptions for maybe a few, but there's this enormous fear in me, and I just can't help myself. My whole body freezes and everything, and I just can't surrender to that process. No, I mean,
So in
again,
that,
I'm using the word can't.
yeah,
It's
in
not,
that
it's not,
moment, just ask yourself, what are you scared of? And I know with that initiation thing, the power coming through, I was afraid that my heart, like I said, my body
Heart
wouldn't.
will explode. Yeah, that's how it
But it
feels. I
didn't
feel like,
implode.
oh my God, I'm gonna die. And I
Yeah,
stop.
it didn't implode. And what it did was it actually brought more life in. I wasn't living in life. I was living in the death row, because we are consumed in that program that we've been in is all about, stress and worry and death. And what we believe is we age to become dead at the end of it all, and leave this form. Whereas I always felt that was just such a destructive path, and it wasn't what I knew was my path. I knew that I could live here and extend my life to whatever age I wanted to, if I did it correctly, if I was able to use the energy and the power and the essence that I really am. I would just shed this body when I chose to, not create some horrific end of how I went out, which is what we've done in the past. And I realized that a lot of my fear was around death. And that was only not because I knew that we go on to another form, or we are this essence that lives on eternally. It was more about the way that I died in past. That was what I was afraid of, that I was going to have some horrific death,
Yes.
and be in
Makes
pain
sense.
and tortured in the end of that time. But no, I'm going to choose to just go to sleep and leave my body here. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm not afraid of death in that way anymore. I'm now living more than I was before. I'm not in that death program anymore, which is what that matrix is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's very important for me to hear that from someone who has went through similar experience, and because I'm really struggling with it. It's not that even that my mind kicks in, it's just my body instantly reacts to it, and I go and I jump out of bed and everything, and
yeah.
it's like, oh. And some nights I kind of allow it to happen, and then it's like I don't remember what happens. It's just like it goes in my pineal gland, boom, and I get knocked out, and it's like then I'm on some kind of almost hallucinogenic journey or
Yeah,
something. I'm tripping every other night. That's
I know. That's fun.
but this fear of death, that's a key for me. That it
Mm.
comes from past lives, because I can't just get over it, and yeah. I
Well,
can't.
you
I'm
can.
using this word. Can't. I
You
can.
will. You
It's
are.
just it haven't happened yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
And it's
yeah.
finding like that now, giving you a different perspective to look at. And that there
Mm,
may be the key that just drops that whole thing for you. I know it was for me.
yeah.
And that I'm actually the one that
That's
has the
exactly what
power
I.
here
Yeah.
to be able to know when I'm going. If I create my world, then I'm going to create the perfect way out of it, not and transforming into my next life,
Mm,
not some tragedy and horrible caca that we've been in before.
mm.
Do all that again. I didn't come in here to do all that again. It's not, it's not what I want to do.
Yeah, I really like how your mind works. You have really fine-tuned mindset there. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very. You have given me some key perspectives that I can change for myself now.
cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
to see it from that angle.
Yeah. But it's been an interesting conversation, Vitaly. Thank you so much for coming in. And
Thank you. I loved it as well.
I did, and I knew I would. I've been really looking forward to it, and I love, like I say, your posts on Facebook have just always. There's always some, like I said, the one that really cracked me up. That one with the
Horse
horses, that
carriage.
story, that was just so brilliant, and I just got that
Yeah.
in an instant. And I do every time you write, it's like you're writing from
Thank
me.
you.
It's very cool.
Yeah, I haven't been into it lately. I just did with all this. I'm not very focused on it. Just sometimes something bursts out and I put it on Facebook. But yeah, lately I don't
Yeah.
even use any social media. Barely go on
Mm.
them. But yeah, thank you, thank you.
You're
It's nice
so
to hear. Maybe
welcome.
something more will come.
Beautiful. And start getting out again and living life. It's honestly,
Yeah,
it's too precious. This world that we live in, I
yeah,
mean, nature, this planet is just unreal, just so beautiful.
yeah.
Which is who we are.
Yeah.
We are this planet, There's
And
nothing from her that we can be harmed. All right, well, very cool, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I really enjoyed this, and yeah, I hope tonight I will explode.
Yes.
After this.
That'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, well, much
I felt
love
that
to
something
you.
like that is coming. I woke up in the morning and I saw already, okay, talk with Mandy today, something I see, something is going to resolve it. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
now
cool.
I see what. Let's hope for the best. And
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
thank you very much.
So welcome, and thank
Yeah,
you.
been
Much
wonderful.
love to you.
Yeah. Much love.
All righty.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.